There's a new ongoing rumor that Iger has already picked out his replacement and is already preparing his replacement. Now, when I read this story, when I go through what I see that he already wanted this replacement before Chapek, and that Chapek was the definitive fall guy for the reason Disney was failing. I think that whole theory is becoming more and more obvious because this lady has been in key positions for a long period of time. And even though I don't take experts' words that seriously, I do put some credit to it, but it allows me to just, hey, they know something. Maybe I can take some point of this and maybe put it to everything else and go from there, but that's neither here nor there. They do point out something interesting, that usually the CFOs become the next CEOs, including Iger to CEO. So there's some interesting thoughts that come up here as I read this, and points that I think confirm that everything that happened to Chapek was nothing more than Dune. He was purposely set up to fail. And this lady was behind it along with Iger and the board. But let's get into it, shall we? Disney CFO Christine McCarthy is at the center of Bob Iger's comeback plan, potentially the next CEO. As Bob Iger returns to Disney, the company's longtime CFO Christine McCarthy, who has the ear of the board, will help usher in a strategic restructuring. Bob Chapek, who succeeded Bob Iger as CEO in 2020, mind you, he succeeded Bob Iger and is now also being succeeded again by Bob Iger. I cannot speak. Do that with that as you will. Anyways, he only got 2 years. He was only in there for 2 years before he was canned. And again, there was more like a year because Iger was training him all through that time. Iger was training him for a whole year up into him being let go. And then everything hit the fan. And when Chapek tried to steer us away from any disaster, the board forced him down on his knees. Iger forced him down on his knees. And then they blamed everything on Chapek. Was ousted by Disney board. Iger reportedly received a call from Susan Arnold, chairman of the board, on November 18th at a concert where he was introducing, I cannot remember the dude, not Liberace, I'll come back to me later, but he was introducing a concert. Okay, he was there at this massive concert for this massive star whose name is escaping me right now, and it's driving me up the wall. He sang Rocket Man. Tell me in the comments, please. The company announced on November 20 that Iger would return as CEO for another 2 years. Over the summer, senior leaders at the company, including McCarthy, warned boardroom directors that Disney was heading in the wrong direction and campaigned for Chapek to go. Iger also had comments over the summer. Everybody had comments over the summer. Chapek over the summer originally said, we're going to be non-political. We're not going to be political. We're not going to take a side. The board bent him over. And everything went downhill from there. According to reports, Disney didn't respond to my request for a comment. Disney's value was about 40% lower than when Bob Chapek first took it over. Granted, you also have COVID to take into a hand. You have the don't say groomer bill situation. You have everything was just coming to a fault. Everything that Iger set in motion was coming to a head. Chapek was that fall guy. McCarthy here seems to also have played some hands in Chapek being their fall guy. Says Sandeep Dahiri, Associate Professor of Finance at Georgetown University, McDowell School of Businesses. Businesses? I don't know. The tipping point was Disney's most recent quarterly earning report on November 8th, he says. For the quarter ending October 1st, Disney missed on both revenue, $28.15 billion versus the $21.26 billion expected, and adjusted earnings per share to 30 cents versus 51 cents expected. The company reported a $1.47 billion net operating loss in the streaming business, one of the two, which includes Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN. Take note, Disney Plus and Hulu, all those companies have started jacking up their prices. They're starting to play around with the bundle system. They are starting to make it that you have to get Disney Plus and Hulu together. They're working on these weird bundle formats. They're trying to nickel and dime you to death. They're trying to do that. And what content do they keep putting out? What is their star shows that they have to offer? At least on Hulu, you get King of the Hill that I watch over and over again, and some other shows that other places don't have, and some terrestrial television for football season. What else do they have? What else? Star Wars? Marvel? We're watching what's happening to Indiana Jones. Do you really think that's going to go anywhere? What does Disney have to offer? Nothing. We believe that this quarter that we're reporting is the low point. We believe that this quarter that we are reporting is the low point, and it will improve from here, McCarthy said on an earnings call. I doubt it. This week, Iger's first move was to announce complete overhaul of Chapek's Disney Media and Entertainment distribution, a hub-controlled profit and loss for all divisions. It is so clear that Bob Chapek's strategy was to take some of the power of decision-making out of the hands of the studio heads and content creators and moved it to the nickel and dimers or coin counters, so to speak. Well, maybe, just maybe that was a good idea. At the start, I kind of had some faith in Chapek, but then he bent over and took it from the board. However, what I have to say here is interesting. When the wallet people have control of everything and they're seeing, hey, what the heck is our money going to and what are we putting out for people to watch, sometimes things change. And considering a lot of their, studio heads and content creators are people like Jessica Gao, Kevin Feige, Kathleen Kennedy, makes you start wondering, do they deserve to have control of all these IPs? No, I don't think they have the right. They have the legal right, but not the moral right. CFO's relationship with the board and transformation. In a memo to employees on Monday about structural changes, Iger wrote in part, I've asked Dana Walden, chair of Disney General Entertainment Content, Alan Bergman, chair of Disney Studios Content, Jimmy Pitaro, chair of ESPN and Sports Content, and Christine McCarthy, to work together on the design of a new structure that puts more decision-making back in the hands of our creative teams and rationalizes costs. Back in the hands of the people. Actually, every hand's the same hand. Every hand stops at the board, and everybody's going to do the same thing. All the activists get all what they want. They get to keep pushing their propaganda. Nothing's going to change. All they're doing is changing, well, who has control? Who has control? They're not firing people. They're keeping people on. Now, there is layoffs coming for the low-level people because they can't afford anybody. There's a hiring freeze coming on. Can't afford anything. So all they're going to be doing is, hey, Foggy, have more control. Kennedy, have more control. People like Jessica Gao, run rampant with whatever you want in your shows. Tick off the fans as much as you want because you guys have creative control. Do you really think that's good? We're not talking about a James Gunn here. We're not talking about Zaslav wiping everything out, putting James Gunn in and saying, hey, take the reins. We still have Kevin Foggy and Kathleen Kennedy there. We still have people like Jessica Gowan there. We still have all sorts of people throughout Disney that just hate your guts. Who's that Star Wars writer that likes to go throughout Twitter and just start lambasting people? Basically called Star Wars Theory a baby for having an emotional reaction to seeing Luke be badass again. Remember those people? Remember the people that fired Gina Carano? Yeah, they're having control again. McCarthy joined Disney in 2000 and was appointed CFO in 2015. Usually the CFO... this gets into the point where I'm convinced Chapek was the definitive fall guy. It was set up by Iger, the board, and McCarthy. This was their plan the whole time because it just... when you get into some of this points, it just doesn't feel right. Usually the CFO is one of the candidates to succeed the CEO. And if they don't get the job, many times they move on. Dahara says, it's difficult to know if she was in the mix of potential CEOs. So you mean to tell me she was in the original mix for the CEO, but it went to Chapek because the board, which she had parts of, agreed. Arnold said in a statement in 2020 about Chapek's appointment that the board has been actively engaged in succession planning for the past several years, and after consideration and internal and external candidates, we unanimously elected Bob Chapek. McCarthy did not become the new CEO when Iger stepped down, but she continued to be a big power center. This was the plan from the start. McCarthy was always going to be the CEO. It's starting to look like. She was always going to become Iger's new CEO. They needed a fall guy because McCarthy, she needs to have that pretty record. She can't have this nasty record. She can't have this disgusting record that Iger created. We need a fall guy. We need somebody in between us to take all the blame away from me and not put none of the blame on you, McCarthy. This is Iger to McCarthy. Let's put Chapek in charge and make him our fall guy. Make him our sacrificial lamb. This is starting to look like Dune all over again. You were always meant to lose. Somebody else was always meant to come in and take you over. Dahari says, Iger, with Disney for more than 4 decades. Yeah, that's right. I said with Disney. That doesn't sound right, but it is. Served as chief executive officer from 2005 to 2020, then was executive chairman until December 2021. So that was our CEO, Iger. So communications between McCarthy and Iger continued, he says. They were always in communication. She was always Iger's pick. She was always the board's pick. She will be the next pick if they last that long. I don't think they will. I think they're going to, because Iger's a politician. He's going to make it look so pretty, give as much confidence as he can, and then she's going to come in and do the same thing. It's funny how all this starts working out once you start reading through it. McCarthy and Iger continued. Their communications continued all through Chapek's tenure. CFOs are unique compared to some of the other C-suites executives in the sense that they are much more likely to spend time with the board members because of the financial and quarterly results. She's in constant communication with Iger even while Chapek's in charge. She's constantly with the board while Chapek's in charge, while they were deciding who's taking over for Chapek. Not Chapek, Iger. Yeah, who's taking over for Iger, and helped decide to oust Chapek in the end. Man, it's getting kind of dark, don't you think? Jamie Eddington, a partner at Heredick and Struggles, a regional leader of Americans, shared insight on the CFO role. In general, I think this just highlights overall the strategic and multifaceted nature of CFOs today. Eddington says, typically all public company CFOs meet with the audit committee chair in their interview process. But more and more, they're meeting with board members as well to establish an even deeper connection with their boards. Now McCarthy's role will include building Disney's next chapter. I think CFOs are involved in a lot more of the transformational initiatives that are undertaken, Dahari says. This is going back to Dahari. This is Jamie Eddington. I don't know why they even said this, but it's back to Dahari. A lot of this has to do with the fact that corporate America has to manage investors' expectations more rigorously and frequently than, say, 25 years ago. We have hedge funds. She has to manage talking to people like this. The hedge funds, BlackRock, activist shareholders, and very diverse investor base. So frequently, CFOs are taking the lead in terms of crafting the strategy and communicating it, he says. What does that sound like? Let's be real. What does that all sound like? What does that make you think of? The don't say gay. I don't like saying that, but what they went with all that. When Chapek came out and had to bend the knee after saying, we're not going to be political. After Iger made his comments by basically saying that Chapek messed up. Everybody making their comments. The board bending him over. The board that McCarthy had the ear of while still in communication with Iger. This person that knows all their activist people. This person that is very keen in all these key areas. She was set up to be a CEO all along, it's starting to look like. She's probably going to become their next CEO. And it's starting to look more and more like Chapek was the fall guy from the very beginning. And he never had any freedom. He was meant to fail. Regarding the restructuring set to take place, there can be very interesting debate about whether this strategy is going to work in the next 10 years, as it worked under Iger's last reign, Dahari says. The jury is still out on that. I think it's safe to say that the stakes are high for strategic partners McCarthy and Iger, and the board will be watching. They love Iger. Iger can serenade them and convince them that, hey, we're on the right. We get paid to be right, remember? McCarthy has been next to Iger for several years, it looks like. So what the heck's gonna happen? Where are we going to go? And who will be the replacement for Iger? It's starting to look more and more like our Cruella de Vil looking individual here, as a lot of people are pointing out, is going to be the next CEO of Disney and is getting primed and prepped to take that mantle as she prepares their next stages by Iger's decision. But let me get your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it out with all your friends, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for every time I put out a new video and go live, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.